Joining me now for reaction, White House counselor to the president, excuse me, my friend of too many years to count, Kellyanne Conway. All right, Kellyanne, this is wild. I mean, I've never seen this. I've been in this town for 30 years. You escaped to New York for a while, but I've been in this town for a long time. An anonymous staffer strikes up some relationship with the New York Times, and they're convinced to pen this op-ed. What are your thoughts?
I'm not sure it matters. There are op-eds like that in the New York Times every day. It's just a different byline, or I guess a non-byline here. I just have to correct the record. It's not clear to us anyway that it's somebody in the White House. So they're saying senior administration official. That could be many people. There are, I think, thousands of political appointees, hundreds of folks who would qualify under that title alone. But to your point, presidents aren't judged by the noise or even the silence that's occurring at any one moment or any one week. By the usual critics and naysayers. They're judged by the metrics. And when I hear people on cable news, even today in your montage, I confess I hadn't seen any of it before now, say words like historic, unprecedented, stunning. That's exactly the way we describe the economy. It's exactly the way we describe the way he's chopped down all the overburdensome, duplicative, and unnecessary regulations. This is a historic and unprecedented economic boom time. And the Democrats would take that away. And he knows that, because you saw the president today respond the way many of us who have the privilege of working in the White House see him respond all the time, not fuming, not infuriated, not isolated. He took it right to what was already a planned event with the sheriffs who are lined up there to thank this president for being pro-law enforcement, to making sure they have the resources and the respect they deserve. No. And he took it out of his pocket and he read his statement and he pushed back on this op-ed.
Any of this stuff true? Any of the things that are in this op-ed ring true at all in the slightest?
What rings true to me is that people are trying to have it both ways. They want to serve in the government, and they're pretending that they're somehow protecting the country from Donald Trump. You see that all throughout the Woodward book.
But is this a fault of staffing? I mean, we have a very small presidential personnel office compared to Obama. I think half the staffers, last time I checked. I know Johnny DeStefano seems like he's a good guy.
But it really depends who it is. In other words, it depends who it is.
But we've always been concerned from the beginning that there were people in this administration who did not buy into the Trump agenda, looked down upon it, thought we can thwart the agenda, whether it's the wall or, and they were kind of laughing at the agenda. And I was worried about it. A lot of like-minded people who were with Trump from the very beginning were very worried. I'm still worried about it.
I hear you. I would prefer...
We got an op-ed in the New York Times.
Yes, indeed. And it really depends who it is. But I also think that's not particularly relevant. But meaning like who it is. But what I want to say is...
It could be someone in the West Wing.
It's just, it could be. Here's what I want to say about all of that. That would be a huge problem. But here's what I want to say about all that. It's not, the president said something today I thought really rang true. He said the New York Times had apologized to its readers because it got the election so wrong. He's got a good point, which is it's still not clear that many who cover him every day and criticize him thusly understand how he got here and what he's done since he got here and what it all means to people. And that's incredibly important, because look at the histrionics on Capitol Hill yesterday. Look at the difference between people trying to protest and disrupt.
Oh, we're getting into that with
a hearing. Well, a hearing for an eminently qualified individual who today basically schooled some of the senators on the Constitution. And the point I'm making to you is, who put him there? That is the product of Donald Trump's decision-making processes. And so, and speaking of Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell, they were at the White House today. And you know what came of it? You know what came of these meetings? That they're going to vote, the House is going to vote on making permanent the individual tax cut. So the people saying, oh, they should invoke this amendment, then they're actually continuing with the president's agenda. They know it's working.
But this drumbeat, and it's with Woodward, who has won, won every journalistic award, well respected. By the way, did you see this, like, your mention in this Woodward deal? Like, this is the goofiest.
Yeah, I'm thrilled.
I don't know if you guys can
see the annotation is...
This is one of the goofiest things I have ever seen. This is a transcript of a call that says nothing, where the president is actually, I think, really cool. With Woodward saying, well, I'm not going to, it's probably going to be a lousy book. I'm not really... And he's like, Kellyanne. He's like, there's a part where he talks about Kellyanne. And it's, like, so idiotic. Like, who cares? So I got to play for you something that that John Kerry, former Secretary of State, Democrat, obviously Obama, said tonight on CNN. Let's watch.
This is a genuine constitutional crisis. This is a moment where it's a crisis of conscience for people in the United States Senate on the other side of the aisle, where they have been willing to be more protective of their chairmanships, of their party, of their president, than they have of the Constitution and the institutions themselves.
Constitutional crisis, but you see this building from whether it's Goofy Omarosa or Woodward to this, Michael Wolff, it goes on and on.
Well, look, there are rumors that John Kerry wants to run and lose again for president. That's his right. It's a free country. He can do that. He's over the age of 35. Go for it. Joe Biden wants to do the same thing. You saw a lot of the 2020 aspirants yesterday trying to embarrass Brett Kavanaugh, but they really embarrassed themselves and the people who were there protesting on their behalf. And the one thing I don't see in the Woodward book, which I think is very fascinating, is Russia collusion. Oh, Kellyanne, why is that relevant? He didn't say he was out. The media spent more time on that story than anything else.
I haven't read the book. I mean, I don't.
But is it in there? In other words, if you're a journalist who took down Richard Nixon, if you're deeply respected in many corners in Washington, D.C., wouldn't somebody who had evidence of that come to you? Wouldn't it leak out?
Well, there's no Russia collusion. This is why they're going to the 25th Amendment tonight.
That's actually important because they're going to say, why is she talking about that? We're talking about, because they pivot. Because when they have nothing to say, they move to the next story.
You did an interview with Woodward, yes?
I did, early on when he came to the White House, very early on when we got there.
What did you guys
And then a year and a half later or so, I went to have lunch with him to find out about the book and what else, but I'm of course above board about that because we talk about it. I said it to the president. I told the president directly about it.
But this is what I'm saying. I don't like people who go to their car and write memos to the file like Comey. I don't like people who write anonymous op-eds because it's loserville. It's people who are afraid to put their names. If you're a whistleblower, you step forward.
But that's why so much of the book
you actually use your name.
New. Well, that's why. But so much of the book is not new because it's the fourth consecutive book that I can see where certain people are trying to feed their own emotions and egos about how brilliant they were on the campaign and when we first got in the White House, and it's so that's a little tired. Right. But what I wanted to tell you too is I think in that call it's important because Woodward says that he tried through 6 or 7 different people to get an interview with the president, and so I said, would you please give the president all the names because the only one he knows is mine, and I don't think that that's been revealed yet because, of course, there's sources for the book. Look, many of the accounts is almost a first-person account of some former colleagues, and I think that's very disappointing.
He has a lot of tapes.
It's very disappointing that some people went on the record and they have. But General Jones in Obama's White House, he left after the Woodward book came out called Obama's Wars and he was the NSA, he was the National Security
I said this again, from the first week of the administration, we're out of time, but first week of the administration, there started to be leaks. Actually 2 weeks before the inauguration, leak, Flynn stuff. Like, what?
Well, the leakers aren't difficult to figure out, though.
From the beginning of the administration, the
president knows how I feel about this. The leakers fall into two big categories. People who say they never talk to the media, they hate the media. Oh, I'm so afraid to go on the Ingram angle. Kellyanne, how do you do it? I can never talk. They talk to the media all day long. The other category is people who never get bad press. So obviously that would be you or me. But people never get bad press.
No,
good leakers.
Kellyanne, thank you so much for coming in.
You got it.
For coming in.
Thank you.
I thought it was just a fascinating conversation with Bob Woodward. They gave him a page of this ridiculous.
You and I are not anonymous.
Yeah, exactly.